All right, we have some horrifying news regarding global warming. Vice has this beautiful blog where they post all types of current events regarding global warming, whether it's what's going on over here, the ice melting here, animals going extinct over here, and so on. And they say that we may have surpassed the tipping point, meaning that we could end up with a runaway greenhouse effect. So Vice reports here, the rate of climate change is unprecedented in record history, according to the World Meteorological Agency. The amount of carbon emissions today is likely greater than at any point in the last, ready for this, 66 million years. What the fuck? And this is all a result of the greenhouse gas. Or the greenhouse gases, I should say. So, how do we know this here? Well, we have the biggest monthly temperatures ever recorded, the lowest amount of sea ice in the Arctic ever recorded, highest wind speeds of any tropical storm, and the quickest pace of sea level rise. So, obviously, this is a result, like I said, of greenhouse gases or of us continuing to burn fossil fuels, which we should have been off about 100 years ago. We should have been moving on to solar, wind, and hydro. This would have been a way better option. But the oil companies decided, no, we should stay on the oil. Now, to give you a couple more examples, Russia and China had their warmest years ever. Heat waves rippled across the globe, temperatures reaching 116 degrees Fahrenheit during a hot spell in India in late May, causing 2,500 deaths and decimating their livestock. Storm in Libya has a similar situation going on, but in a different way. They've been getting 99 millimeters or 3.5 inches of rain every single day in September. Now compare that to the usual monthly average of 0.3 inches. Just put that in your mind for a second. We have Libya, who normally gets 0.3 inches a month of rain, and they're now getting, just in the month of September, 3.5 inches a day, not a month. Usually it's 0.3 a month. It's 3.5 a day. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, they also say that the oceans are warming, like I said, resulting in 6,500 feet below the surface, were the hottest ever recorded. Now, some of these extremes can be attributed to a phenomenon called El Nino, which occurs every 2 to 7 years and can just wreak havoc and have devastating global effects. El Nino basically is just the warming of the central and eastern tropic Pacific, and this changes the global temperature and also increases rainfall, which is an effect we're seeing in Libya. Now, the rising global temperatures and frequent extreme weather events are driven by human-generated greenhouse gas emissions. It's absolutely crazy. Now, if you don't know how greenhouse effects work, greenhouse gas effects, basically, as we emit more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, as we burn more fossil fuels and coal and so on, the atmosphere warms up, becomes warmer. Now, as that happens, the sea begins to warm as well. Now, what else do you have? You have the Arctic ice beginning to melt. Now, as that ice melts, it melts into cool water, and that cool water then mixes with the warm water, creating an increase in the temperature gradient between low latitudes, middle, and high latitudes. This increases the amount of storms, the strength of the storms, and the rise of the sea level. So this is absolutely devastating and terrifying, but it gets even better. So they went on to compare today to about 56 million years ago. So they say about 56 million years ago, during a period called the Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum, or PETM, Earth warmed by 5 degrees Celsius because of a spike in carbon dioxide. And even scientists say it closely resembles what humans are doing to the atmosphere due to the coal we're burning for power, the gas we're consuming to move our vehicles, and trees we cut down for any number of reasons. The carbon release back then happened over a period of 4,000 years, which is a blip in the Earth's life. which caused a massive die-off of marine animals. The difference between then and now is carbon emissions during the PETM were about 0.6 to 1.1 billion tons per year. Today, they are estimated 10 billion tons per year. They say last year's record-breaking temperatures are just a dose of what to come. So this is not good, man. This is not good at all. And obviously, like they're saying, this has almost 100% to do with human beings and the fact that we continue to burn fossil fuels. It blows my mind. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to do with the oil companies because they have kept it from the public. And obviously, as you know, there's maybe 6 corporations that run all the media channels on television. I think it's General Electric, Disney. There's a couple other ones. And they basically control what you see on the media. And I don't know if you know this, but it's actually not against the law to falsify the news, which, I know, seems kind of silly, right? Really, you shouldn't be able to falsify the news. Nah, they don't care. So obviously, keeping this information from the public over the last couple of decades, and because they want to keep their industry going, even though it's causing irreversible damage that people say, oh, the Earth is gonna blow up. The Earth is gonna be fine, as George Carlin says. The Earth will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. It's not the Earth. It's us. It's our environment that we have to worry about because we are polluting the hell out of it. Now, just a couple of little facts here for people who even want to go more into this. There's going to be, they say there could be huge dead zones could appear in the world's oceans by 2030. Polar bears now have to swim longer and more often to find ice to rest. Record high temperatures have already killed over 100 people in India. And the world's coral reefs are undergoing a massive die-off. Now, what happens here? If the coral reefs, see, we don't think about it in normal day life. We don't think of it as a food chain. We don't think of, hey, if this one kink, boop, leaves, we're just going to sink back up and everything will be fine. No, if one thing in that chain, whether it's the bee population, because remember when the bee population was going extinct and everybody was like lactating blood, they were like, oh my God. Because if some kink in the chain vanishes, you just get a massive collapse. So going back to what I'm saying about coral reefs is that we depend on coral reefs because every animal above that, certain animals depend on the coral reefs, those animals depend on those animals on those animals, organisms on these organisms. So if the coral reefs end up disappearing, the animals that feed on those coral reefs will also die off. And then the organisms that feed off the organisms that feed off the coral reefs will also disappear. And it will be it's chain reaction because it's a food chain. So this is just terrifying, man. This is absolutely terrifying. But there is one fact that I think you all should know that I think is the icing on the cake. It's the cherry on top. It's the button on the shirt. It's a horrifying fact. Ready for this? The oil companies, which, by the way, are the ones perpetrating the fossil fuels and carbon dioxide emissions, the oil companies were warned about climate change in 1968. Let that sink in for a second. They were warned about this back in 1968. I don't even know if my mother was born yet. Maybe. 1968. Now, obviously, as we know, they don't give a fuck. It's their industry. ExxonMobil, Shell, they want to keep going. They don't give a fuck that the atmosphere is getting screwed up and there is going to be mass extinction, which could, in fact, affect us in a large way. They don't care about that. Because when it comes to money, humanity gets thrown out the window. The health and longevity of organisms get thrown out the window. They don't care. They don't care. And obviously, at this point, you have to think the families that are inheriting these oil companies, because obviously back in 68 it was different people running ExxonMobil or Shell, and today we have different people. So you have to wonder, is there sort of a brainwashing going on where they don't even believe that they're causing this devastation? Because, if you watch, news channel like Fox, which is the Republican arm of the media, they still have debates on climate change. Hey, is climate change happening? Find out at 9 with Bill Nye. Like, they act as if it's still a debate when, you fucking idiots, we can see the change is right here. We see what's going on. But nope. So you have to think, are they aware? And they're just saying, fuck it, I'm going to get them private. Ooh, yeah, I'm going to get my new car, get my nipple rings. I mean, you have to think, do they know? Are they really believe it? Because I have ran into people who do not believe climate change is happening at all. I mean, even Donald Trump himself, not that he's a good example for intelligent information, thinks that global warming was a Chinese hoax. What? Perpetrated by the Chinese. Oh, they want us to... It's insane, man. It's insane. So, obviously, as more information comes in, we'll report on that. But this is just... I don't even know what to think about this, because what kind of future do we have? Back in 1968, we'll let it go for another 50 years. Who gives a shit? I don't care. More money for me. Blah, 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 blah. And, you don't want to blame the oil companies. I don't want to blame them. But it ain't the cows farting, okay? That's not what's going on. It's not the fact that we have, tons of CAFOs, concentrated animal food operations, I highly suggest you look up, where we have tons and tons of cows that we're trying to milk and slaughter for the meat, and they're farting all the place. I don't know, that did not sound like a fart, but either way, they're farting. But that's not what's going on here. We know that it's from using fossil fuels, carbon emissions, using our oil, our gas, and it's coal. It's wow, man. I mean, I know I'm rambling at this point, but I read this the other day, and I swear to God, I almost fell over in my chair. I couldn't believe that the oil companies knew about it in 1968. They were warned about it, and they just said, fuck it. More profit for me. So, yeah, this isn't good.